was watching some of your latest videos, and I know you made a video about the twins, but I figured this would be a good chance to say more if you wanted. But what are your thoughts about Ida Brooke and Nakoa Wolf Mamoa being cast as Leto II and Ganima?
Initially, when I heard about the rumor, and this was before when Nexus Point News, when they leaked it initially, it was just that they were looking to cast teenage versions of the twins. They hadn't cast anyone yet, but that's what they were looking at. And I think that's fine. I think within the source material, I think there's some creative liberty that can be taken. And that's what I hope it would be. It was in Paul's visions. And it would have to be handled very carefully, because one of the more interesting things about Dune Messiah's story is that, and I guess if we're talking spoilers, Paul only sees one offspring. He doesn't see twins. So it's really interesting how it works out when he is genuinely surprised. I mean, this being who can see past, present, and future and can see into all these avenues of possibilities, he couldn't see Leto II, his son.
Yeah, his son, yeah.
So in the Children of Dune miniseries, we actually did see Leto II as an older version, played by James McAvoy, several times. So it's already been adapted in that way to where Paul is seeing his offspring. Of course, they flipped it for the miniseries where he sees Leto II, but he doesn't see Ganima. So I think there is precedent to showcase the twins, seeing Paul's visions of them in the future. And I think especially towards the end of the story of Messiah, I think that could be a really cool way to kind of lessen the sting of the dramatic events that occur at the end of Messiah, to know that there's a future that will proceed without Paul. And at a certain point, I think he should see both of them. I think that would be cool. And at one point, he does see through the eyes of his son, but he also sees his daughter, Ganima, and he sees her genetic line. He sees Chani through her. He sees Lady Jessica. So that's when he becomes aware that they're both preborn. And I do feel that there is precedent for him to see the future. And I think that'd be a cool way, too, to plant the seeds for Children of Dune, which Villeneuve said he planned to do. Anything more, though, than visions like that, I get way more skeptical. Like if they're time jumping into Children of Dune's story and proceeding further with that. I don't like the fact that Nakoa Wolf Mamoa was cast because he doesn't have any work under his belt. It's his first job. And I just feel like this is one of the most complicated characters in all of science fiction. So I would definitely feel better if someone that had some experience would be playing this role. But if it's just more like a perfume-ad vision, like he's done with Johnny in part 1, I'd be fine with that.
That's a good point. And I've been thinking about that too. And the way I wrap my head around it, the way I do my mental gymnastics is, I think it's possible that he doesn't play the God Emperor forever. I think if they do keep going with the movies, they can do enough of a time jump where he's just older and it's just a different actor they can recast. I think there are ways around it. That's going to be one of my biggest question marks going into this, is seeing an unmarked, unknown actor come in and play one of the largest characters in fiction.
I also think it's just so odd, at least optics-wise, to have the son of an actor that's already in the movie, which is Duncan Idaho. To have his son play Paul and Chani's son is strange to me. Yeah. And it literally just seems that they really didn't put much thought or care into it. It's like, I don't know, it was take your son to work day. And Villeneuve was like, hey, it looks like you could pass for Paul and Chani's son. Do you want a summer job?
I do think I have a little bit of a different perspective on that, because I think Denis is so thoughtful in everything, and especially with his castings. You know, there was interviews were coming out for part 2 promotion, and Austin Butler is talking about his process. You know, he met Denis for coffee, and Denis just spoke to him and got a read of his humanity and how kind he is. And then he tells Austin that he would dream on it, and then he gets back to him after thinking about it. I think Denis is so thoughtful that the process probably wasn't as simple as, for convenience sake, like you guys can carpool to set and then it'll be easy. I do think there was probably something there that Denis thought was very interesting, and he saw something in Nakoa. I mean, this could just be me coping, but I do have so much trust in him and his process that there has to be something there that obviously we haven't seen yet because he hasn't done anything, but there has to be something there, I think.
If I'm being optimistic, obviously by and large, I feel that Denis Villeneuve's casting choices so far have been amazing. As far as Paul Atreides goes, Timothée Chalamet is amazing, and the Reverend Mother, Gaius Helen Mohayim, Charlotte Rampling, superb, and Oscar Isaac's Duke Leto. There's so many that I think are really good. Stilgar, Javier Bardem was amazing. But then there's ones that I feel that could have been better. Like Christopher Walken as the Emperor was a bit, I couldn't really see what Denis was going for there because he just played it like himself. And I might be alone in that. That's just my opinion, that every time I saw him, I didn't really see the Padishah Emperor. I saw Christopher Walken in his pajamas.
The pajamas, yeah. No, you're definitely not alone in that. There was a pretty big split when it came to Walken, and I remember when that casting got announced, I was shocked, and I'm a Denis optimist. So anytime that Denis movie news comes out, I'm like, okay, the best case scenario, Christopher Walken delivers like the most powerful performance. But there is a part of me, that wonders what a different Emperor actor would have looked like and would have sounded like. But credit where credit is due, I do think Christopher Walken captured a very like reserved power with his limited screen time, and with the help of Greg's cinematography. He felt like this very larger than life character up until the scene when he arrives on Arrakis. I think that could have been a little bit more effective, but from the start with the scene on Kaitane in the garden, I was bought into it. But then his vocal delivery was definitely unique.
Yeah, I think Villeneuve had a specific vision for the way Christopher Walken would play it. And obviously he's playing it according to the director's direction. And I think what he wanted to go for was an emperor who seemed weaker, because I think the goal was to make the Bene Gesserit more insidious, to have more of a role in the architect of the plans to take down House Atreides, which seemed a bit different from part one and how that was carried over to part two. And it seems other factions as well were diminished because of that, because we didn't get to see Thufir Hawat's Mentat. Even though he filmed scenes with Austin Butler, he wanted the Bene Gesserit to be the end-all be-all of what was going on as far as the antagonist and the plan. So I feel like it was very specific. His choices are specific. So I credit him to where I think it works out in accordance to his faithfulness to the source material. It's when he deviates, and clearly he had a specific vision there with the Bene Gesserit, and I feel like that was a product of that with the Emperor, making him look a bit weaker and not having as much control that he had, at least in the source material. So it seemed that he was weaker there, but with the adaptation that he was doing, which was Bene Gesserit focus, which he has said, it worked out to that end. But yeah, as a book fan, I had in my mind someone that at least had the appearance of more control, at least a more of an architect of evil in his own plans. And of course, the Bene Gesserit have their own plans in the background. He's very specific in his choices, and I credit him when I enjoy it. I do enjoy the performances by and large. There's always just like one little thing I wish was different.
That's always going to happen, I think, especially when you're doing a story this large. Like, I think he's talked about, and Joe Walker has talked about, that part of the process, which is very painful, is chopping away and cutting away at the limbs of this thing that you've shot. So I think that was just one of the sacrifices maybe they had to make. But that was a really interesting perspective about the Emperor being cast as weaker to portray, more strength in the Bene Gesserit. I hadn't thought about that.
Because he wasn't supposed to look that old. With the spice, he would have looked much younger and he would have been more vital. So I think it was definitely very intentional for how Villeneuve wanted to envision the story. I like David Lynch's version of the Emperor. And again, that's where I think these other adaptations kind of fill in the gaps of things that I missed with other visionaries. So that's why I think it's kind of cool that these different ones exist. So there's like casting choices that are like, oh, that's awesome. I love that. And just occasionally there's one out there that it's out of left field that I question. And I will have to wait and see what Villeneuve's reasoning is on that. That was crazy, though, about the twins reveal. I did not think something like that could get out. Considering how careful they were with Anya Taylor-Joy, which I don't think any of us knew for sure until she showed up on the world premiere red carpet. We didn't know what was going on with Aaliyah.
That was such a cool part of the experience of part two's release, was seeing Anya on the red carpet and doing a double take, wondering if she's just there. And then wasn't it an interview where somebody accidentally leaked that information like the day before?
Yeah, because I think it had premiered. I guess they thought, well, it's leaked out there and it's the internet anyways. And if she's in it, may as well have the experience of being on the red carpet. So either way, if you didn't know before then, if you're trying to avoid spoilers, you may not have seen that, but you definitely knew for sure once the world premiere came and she was on the red carpet. It just surprises me that they were so careful with that right up until its premiere. And then this got out about the twins, and it's at the Wild West with this information this time around. It's weird.
Yeah, it is so weird. And it's crazy that it happened before production even officially started.